Hello, I'm Simon Hope, and I'm just going to turn a small simple box out of this piece of English yew just to demonstrate the 8mm square bar carbide tool. So we'll just get this trued up. Just going to use a swept back bowl gouge just to rough that down very quickly. Put a spigot on each end. Slight dovetail. And then we just part about a third way down, third for the lids, 2/3 for the base. Now I'm using the thin parting tool, but I still have to cut in two separate passes so it doesn't get too hot and bound up. And then we can just break that into two for our lid and the base. So we've got the top mounted up, and sort of normal box procedure is to do the inside of the lid first, and then we'll get that fitted onto the base and make a jam chuck. So we'll start demonstrating the 8mm square bar carbide tool, and the beauty with this tool is because it's a square bar, the end has been machined to always hold the tip at 45 degrees, which is the really nice shear cutting angle. So as long as you always keep the square bar flat on the rest, it will always present the tip at the correct or nice cutting angle, which I'll demonstrate. What I'll do first of all is just tip it over this way and just start by getting a nice clean cut. Then I'll go on the other flat surface and we'll actually take the inside out. Now what I do is just put a little bit of pressure with the fingers or the hand just to keep it on the rest, and then just use a pivot action, and that will make a nice rounded bottom to the inside of the lid. So we've got a nice clean cut here. Sometimes it's quite hard to get it cutting on the centre, so the more you actually bring the handle towards you, the more that cutter wants to actually cut in on that centre. So I actually start slightly below, lift the tool up, all of a sudden it will cut on the centre, and then you simply pivot round. Now I'm just going to use another little tool to get a nice flat edge here to make the box fit. And this is just an 8mm round bar that I've got fixed into one of my handles. And because it's a round bar, it always cut parallel. If you try this with a square bar, the top edges push you out the way, whereas a round bar will always cut parallel. Now, as I was making that cut, I was actually eyeing to the bed bars at the bottom. You can actually see that you're cutting parallel very, very accurately. So we'll get that bit set. I'll just put a little chamfer on that edge, and then we can finish off to the point that you can see there, that step. So we'll just do a couple of finishing cuts. The bevel's actually rubbing, so you are getting a really nice clean cut on the end grain. One more. and that would just need a light sand, about sort of 240 onwards. Right, I've just mounted up the base, so what we need to do is just clean up this surface. We'll then transfer the size of this lid onto there, and we'll make a jam chuck in order to finish the shaping of the lid. But we do need to just clean this up to begin with, so these tears don't get in the way of our markings. So I'll just run a bowl gouge or a spindle gouge just across the surface, just keep that bevel rubbing. Now I'm going to use some metal verniers to transfer that sizing. Now this can be quite dangerous, so you've got to be careful in what you're doing, and I'll explain that as I'm doing it. But first of all, I'm just going to take the sizing across the diameter, lock that off, and I'm going to mark with the left hand side of the point. I point slightly downhill, and you've always got to make sure that the right hand point doesn't touch the wood, because if it does, it will flick up. So just be very careful, lightly touch with the left until it meets up with the right hand side, and that's got to be exactly the correct size. So I'm just going to use the parting tool, and we're just going to start to go down. I can see where that line is. Just before I get to that line, what I do is sort of roll the tool over and put a chamfer on that edge. Right, so what should happen now is that would just start to ride on that chamfer, and once it does that, I can see exactly where I need to work to. So it was just on that front edge. So we're just going to take that down, put another little chamfer there, and then stop to check. When it gets too tight, you should always stop the lathe, because that can grab it out of your hand. But you'll see it will just start to bite on, and we just need to micro adjust that chamfer to get a good jam fit. So we just take it down in stages. I also wet it slightly, which helps to get a good fit. We'll just micro adjust again just to take that chamfer down to get the final fitting. It's still just a little bit too tight. So now we can shape the outside of the box. The rest is just a little bit too high, we'll just drop that down. We'll put a little bit of shaping on the outside. I'd normally sand all of that up, but we'll just take this off and just work at doing the inside. So now we can go back to the Carbide tool. We'll just get the rest set to the correct height. And we need to take more out of the base. The lid we just took a little bit out, so the procedure I normally do for larger amounts is just to core the centre out first, then just to hollow out the rest that's needed to be done. So again, we're just working on this bottom edge. So I go down roughly about an inch each time. and as long as you always just keep that flat on the rest, so always at the safe cutting angle. Now you can see the bulk of all that material has been taken out. It's gone down there roughly about sort of 2.5 inches. We're just going to do some finishing cuts, and that will be the inside of the box dump. Very clean on the end grain. It doesn't cut quite as clean on the side grain, especially if you come across and then come up straight. What's actually happening is it's scraping on that bottom edge. So as you cut across the bottom, the more you can bring that handle across, the more then it's going to cut and slice on that front edge, and you'll actually get a better finish up the side. So a really nice clean cut edge on the end grain. As you come round the corner, if you can bring that handle round to that position, it's harder to master, but if you can come up the side at that angle, you'll get a much cleaner cut. So that would just need a light sand with a bit of wax. I would wet sand that helps to fill all the pores up nicely. Nice clean finish on the bottom. I would slightly adjust the fit. I just try and put a slight dome on the spigot, which means the lid rides over nicely. Nice suction fit. I'll then just make a jam chuck just to finish the bottom off, but we won't do that now. Hopefully I've just shown you the processes needed to hollow all of that out. Thanks for watching.